Get things started today. Team number 2, we are here to present our event planner web application user experience design map. Myself, Sonia Dunn, and my colleagues Megan Derrick and Diana Smith will be taking you through kind of the application flow based on the scenarios and the personas that we have previously received your approval on. So the agenda for today is we want to do a little bit of level setting. So we're going to review the mission and the project goals. And then after that, we're just going to dive right in where I will be presenting to you kind of sections 1 through 3 of the applications. Megan will be taking you through sections 4 through 6. And then Diana will be finishing up with sections 7 through 10. And then we'll close out the meeting. So mission and business goals. So just to remind ourselves that our key kind of mission with developing this event application is to really connect event planners with event vendors in a simple, easy to use, and mutually beneficial web application. So we want to connect those that are looking for services and those that are service providers, give them a common space and easy place to connect with each other. Our key goals of the site for this first year is that we are looking to register 1,000 event planners in this first year. And then once we kind of get that off ground running, kind of our phase 2 will be to look then to figure out ways for us to generate revenue by ads, having ads placed within the app, and then also then registering an additional 5,000 event planners in year 2. So where are we right now? So with it all said, we kind of have gone through and we've approved our scenarios. We know which personas. We kind of know that key target audience that we're going after. So this user experience map that we're going to share with you today is really about the delivery. How do we motivate the user and make sure the user interface is helping them with the means? And then in the next couple weeks, as we work out the wireframes and some design concepts, we'll be looking at kind of the information. How do we satisfy that user? So again, we've kind of developed the primary personas, we've developed our scenarios, and then today we're kind of looking at that user environment design, and then in the future, in the next kind of steps of this process, we'll be looking at the wireframes. And so I'm going to begin. Here's a kind of view of our entire design map, and then we're gonna dive in here. So I'm going to start and just flip gears so we can take a closer look. And I'm going to start here with section 1. So section 1 is our user profile. So this is going to occur after the user has already downloaded the application or found the application within a desktop version within the internet. And so the setup profile is really providing a place for that user to set up their profile and kind of set up the admin rights for the site. So it's about setting, event date if they're ready to do that. It's about assigning primary, secondary, or even tertiary users. It's about setting passwords. It's about, making sure there's a unique first name, last name for each of those users. And then we're also going to provide them an opportunity to personalize the application. So whether that's from a background, wallpaper, or color theme, we're going to give them the option to do that. And then also to have the ability to share this application. So if they know immediately that it's a great experience or they want to get other users involved in the planning part of the application, they'll be able to share that information via Facebook or Twitter. The relationship with this app with other parts of the application is the event date is a key common denominator. And then again, it will also at this place allow the user to kind of control access to content. So this will dictate within the other parts of the application about what the other users or other people that they want to share with or have the ability to see or not see. From a status standpoint, the primary user will dictate whether any profile is active or non-active, including their own. And then also a primary user will be able to control public versus private. Some of the key objects within that are like email address or date, passwords, also names, and then again that kind of social share API that we need to set up. And then from a persona standpoint, their concerns are, whether this is easy or intuitive. They want something that is going to be smooth, short, so something that they're not going to have to spend 5-10 minutes trying to fill out to get it set up. And then, of course, engaging. So we want to make sure that they're feeling like they're accomplishing something from the get-go, which is the whole intent of this. The next screen, once they have their profile set up, is we're going to be providing an interactive walkthrough. So an opportunity for them to kind of learn quickly, like you would think of it as a quick start, if you set up a TV or your internet box cable service, a quick start to let the user kind of quickly learn about the tools and components of the application. This feature will appear from the profile once the profile is complete and activated. So again, the goal is really to kind of educate them once they kind of make it through that setup. Status will be a play or non-play mode, and then we also will be incorporating accessibility, so to make sure that we are ADA or American Disability Act compliant, we're going to make sure that we have either voiceovers or making sure that we've got meta titles and descriptions to make sure that anybody with any kind of visual or audio disability a disability will be able to access our application as well. And then from an object standpoint, our key things is, again, providing kind of those pop-up toolkits, the video itself, the next button, confirmation alerts, and then any voiceovers that we would need. Again, just make sure that we're for ADA compliant for screen readers. From a persona standpoint, this particular section is really about we can't have it too complicated. So if it's too complicated or it's like a 5 or 10 minute video, we're going to lose users. So we're going to make sure that it fits our users' need and it gives them just enough information to get started. And then if they need to go deeper into any particular feature or function or how do I do this, how to do that, we'll also be providing kind of FAQs. And then the last section that I'm going to review before I hand it off over to Megan is the dashboard main menu. So this is Command Central. So once they've kind of gone through their profile setup and they've kind of had an opportunity to view the kind of quick tutorial interactive walkthrough, they are now ready to start. And so we're going to have them start with the kind of the main dashboard. And again, the purpose of this section is really for the user to kind of be able to access all of those main features, all of their main folders, be able to allow them to navigate to different areas within the app. They can add a new event, they can manage event details, they can be able to search, navigate, edit settings, so all of that functionality will live within this section of the main dashboard. Now this relationship the relationship of this section to the other sections of the application, again, really this is Command Central. So this is where we visualize and envision that user kind of being able to say, okay, I've got my event set up, I want to go to X, or I want to start searching vendors, or I want to do something with my guest list. That will kind of jumpstart them, or they will start from this screen always to get where they need to go. And then this status of this screen will visually, we will be indicating kind of having real-time updates. So if they are on that guest list and they make some changes, when they end up popping back out to this kind of main home screen, they will see those changes made, or those changes will be visible immediately. And then if there's going to be multiple users, so again, I mentioned earlier about there being the ability to have primary or secondary or tertiary users within any given project or account or event plan, they will have indicators to say, okay, it looks like, John Doe last came in and modified something on X date. So as a primary user, they'll have the ability to kind of see those indicators. Key objects that we've defined for this is a toolbar, navigation bar, and then the widgets. So those widgets that kind of will represent each of the different functional features within this application, and then of course the save button. So save, we will automatically be saving information on the back end, but this visually just to provide the user a sense of security and understanding, like, hey, I uploaded a folder, or I just added some notes, or I just completed this search. Being able to save that and visually see something, saving, so whether that's the spinning wheel or we have a pop-up box that has a check next to it like you just saved, we will be including that information. So again, from the persona's perspective and what we've based on our research, understand what they're concerned, we want to keep this section, this particular screen, easy to navigate, making sure that it's organized, and then the ultimate is making sure that that user will have the ability to access their information very quickly. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Megan to take you through starting with sections 4 through 6.
Okay, so part 4, after the user has set up their dashboard and gotten everything sort of organized and put together, the wedding event planner user would then start setting up their wedding story, which is almost like a miniature website with a public URL, and it'll be a place for the user to engage with their wedding party, their family, and their friends. And it's an opportunity to provide the invited participants access to wedding details, such as a map to the reception or hotel information, that sort of thing. The user would be able to, or the admin user would be able to add content and add a photo album and share it on their social media. They would be able to create a design theme so they can personalize it a lot and make it their own and match their any design that they have already in place with their invitations and decorations. They'd also be able to add video. There'd be a place for a biography for the wedding party and the bride and groom themselves. And again, with links and information for attractions and maps. So this area of the app would connect to the event date and the venue details from other screens within the app. And there can be 2 statuses for this particular page. It can be the published mode or the unpublished mode. So if the user is working on setting up their wedding story page, they can keep it hidden while they're working on it and save drafts and that sort of thing. And then there would be the published version where it would be a live functioning little miniature site for users that are not members of the app would be able to access. And different objects that would be used directly related to the wedding story page would be photos, videos, a link to the gift registry. So if they're registered at Target or West Elm or whatever, the wedding guests would be able to quickly find that. There'd also be a guest book where the family members can share well wishes and sort of get the excitement going for the wedding. There would also be a poll for the admin user to send out to anyone with that URL to the wedding story page, just to ask questions like, should we have chicken satay or beef kebabs, that type of thing. And I guess the main concern would be for the user to personalize this and make it their own, and also be able to save the draft as they're working on adding their content before they are ready to publish it. And they would also need to be able to approve comments on the guest book before they would publish it. And so this is all for the user, a way to make the app a little bit more personalized and their own, that they have some ownership and they can make their own decisions with how this app is used in their lives. It's also something a little bit fun and helpful for everybody involved. So the next little area is the guest list, and this is to provide the user with the option to create and edit and import and export guest information. So they would start with a list, and they could input the list either manually or import it from an Excel spreadsheet. It would have the names of everybody, their addresses, and other contact information. This would also be a way for them to keep track of gifts and manage RSVPs, and they'd also be able to make notes of what kind of dinner choices they're choosing, or if they need any other special accommodations. You can also export this list to a third-party vendor if needed. This list, the guest list, would also work for sending reminders to guests, like, hey, 3 weeks until the big day, like, where's your RSVP? Let's get this in there. And there'd also be a little notification tool here to notify the admin to complete their tasks. It would also link up to ERSVP parties and third parties. And the other cool thing about this guest list is that the user is able to categorize and filter based on what kind of data they're looking for, whether it be the percentage of people who have responded yes, or they're looking to find out how many chicken dinners they'll need for the reception. And so this relationship to other areas within the app is pretty minimal. It would only certain data fields would be fed into other sections, such as email addresses. There will also be a status update and for the user to know when it was last modified and who modified it. Only primary and secondary users will be able to modify and edit the guest list and have access to it. And then there's also a indicator that would show the import and export status as well. So objects that are related to the guest list function are an import function, a document such as Excel or Word, a share and download to hard drive, and an icon that is sort of like a QR code. The primary concerns of the user is basically is if this is manageable and an easy way for them to keep track of who has RSVP'd and the other special accommodations that they need, and the ability to export and import through the guest list. And then the next screen is the inspiration board, and this is a place for the user to save and share ideas for the event. Basically, users can save images from the top trends within the website, and they would be able to save popular wedding shops such as David's Bridal, Men's Warehouse. The user can also upload their own images to their inspiration board to help, and they can also make it private or public. So if the user made it a public image, it would go into the top trends area for other users of the app to save and share for later on their own inspiration boards. They can also categorize their ideas and their images based on whether it's decorations or food ideas or colors or dresses, that type of thing, and it'll be really easy for them to organize it. And it's much like a Pinterest sort of style, but there'd be a greater functionality for the user to rate those ideas based on their preference level. If they really love it and they have to have it, they can give it 5 stars, or if it's sort of maybe, they can give it a 3. They'd also be able to add a comment or a sticky note if they just want to make a note of something for later, and also have another one of their users see that as well. Be another way for multiple people who are using the app to communicate with each other. And the main relationship with another component of the app would be the favorites folder. So if a user is on the inspiration board and they find an image that they know that they're going to be for sure using, if they found the most amazing bouquet of flowers they want, they will add that to their favorites folder right from the inspiration board, and that will automatically go to that spot. And they can choose where in their favorites folder directory that it would go, of course. And then there would be a little indicator to, confirm or to cancel if they made a mistake or something. So the objects for the inspiration board are boards, if you kind of think of it as like Pinterest style, where it's actually boards and then there's many, many images inside those boards. There'd be add and upload buttons for if the user needs to add something from a different place on the internet that they've seen, or if they want to upload from their own hard drive. Also a love it button for if they're just browsing around on their own inspiration board or in the trends area, they can add that love it button, and then they'd be able to see later what they've loved. There'd also be photos, of course, comments and sticky notes. And all of these things help with the concern of the persona that they want to share this with their friends. If they need to keep this one private, they can share that with the community. And if they know like a really great vendor, they'd love to get their name out there and share their work with them, with other users in the community. And if they'd be able to organize it and by category and then give it a rating. So that's another really fun tool for the user and a way to keep their ideas organized and refer back to later when they're making their actual plans. So screen 7 would be the date selection, and this is the area where the user is going to select the date and share that proposed date with others. So perhaps when they sign up for the app, they know already that their wedding is going to be October 20th, and they know that already, but sometimes they don't. So this is a place to kind of get ideas rolling, make sure that all their friends and family are going to be able to be there. So their main functions would be to view and to scroll through the calendar. They would select a potential date for, or multiple dates, and then they can select the start and end time, and then they could share that in a poll format, and that would be sent out via email or through Facebook. And then there's also a weather almanac on each little date box, just so users can see the average weather on that day. So if someone's planning an October wedding, that is very helpful because you never know what the weather is going to be like, especially up here in Minnesota. And I'm sure it's the same everywhere. Yeah, so this little area is going to relate to the clipboard, which is the final date. For the final date decision, the clipboard is the, we'll get into that in a bit, but it would also hook up to the venue search area, and it also hook up with email address data fields, and it would connect to the wedding story as well. So objects that would be used primarily in the date selection screen would be the calendar, a weather almanac icon, a share and an email button, an import email contacts button, and a poll icon. The user will be able to control public versus private content, such as the date selection, inviting others for the date poll, and then there'd be different access permissions. So the user can just make it for themselves, or they can give permission for their secondary and tertiary users to use this screen as well. And this is really important for the user who is concerned about if their close family and their friends will be able to go on the date that they're hoping to reserve for their wedding date, and also if the weather is going to be ideal for a wedding. So this is just one little tool for the user to set that in stone and give it that little extra personalization that they are seeking, especially for such a big event as a wedding. So I will now turn it over to Diana to go through the remaining sections.
Hi, this is Diana Schmitz, and next I'm going to be talking about the date selection area of the site. The purpose of this area is for the user to find a good date for their event and propose their date with other people. The functions involved in this area of the site is viewing and scrolling through a calendar. So the user will be provided with a user-friendly calendar, and then they can look through the years and months and potential days to select their event. They can select one or multiple potential dates for the event, along with start and end times. They'll be able to set up a poll, and the idea behind this is that the poll will contain either the one date, but most time it'll contain multiple dates, and then the user can invite people to this poll, and they can decide, all the guests can decide which date works best for them, or if one date works, or if all dates work. So all those results will be gathered on the site, so the host of the event can determine which date would be the best. There'll be different access permissions, obviously, for the poll. The host of the event will invite others to participate, and so they'll only be able to vote on the date they want or select the dates that they can attend versus changing the date. And then once the poll closes, once the host closes the poll, all the results will indicate the number of people that can attend the events, or the event date, and then the host can determine from that which date works the best. The user will also have the ability to, if they don't want to do the poll, they can, or in addition to the poll, they can send an email through the site or the application itself. And they'll then just be able to import email addresses. It'll be the text entry box kind of at the bottom of the page, and so you can send an email, or you could link it to Facebook, link the date to Facebook. Another feature of the site is there'll be some users that are, or the host could be concerned or curious about the weather conditions for the event date that they're choosing. So the site will have a feature where you can view it'll be a weather almanac, so you can view the history of the weather for certain dates. The relationships between the different areas of the site would be the clipboard. So the final date from this area of the site needs to be captured on the clipboard. And the clipboard is basically the final area, the summary area of the site where all the final decisions are held. The venue search, so for venue availability, the date is important. The data fields for the email address. And then connecting the date to the wedding story, so everybody knows when this big day is happening. Objects the user will be using on the site would be the calendar that they're scrolling and viewing from to select the date, the icon for weather almanac to view the weather history, buttons to share or send email, to share on Facebook or send an email, button to import email contacts, and an icon or button to start the poll. So the overall state of this area of the site is the user will control, there'll be a primary user who will be the host, and they'll control the public versus private content. So the example is the date selection they can choose the dates, and then they also choose who will be able to participate in the poll. So there's going to be different access permissions for this, and so this area will be a different state depending on your access permission. Some concerns the user may have when using this area of the site would be when they choose their date, are their close friends and families going to be able to attend that, which is why we incorporated the email feature along with the poll feature to address that user concern. And another big concern would be the weather conditions. Are they going to be bad on my big day? So that's why we also incorporated the weather almanac feature. The next area of the site I'm going to talk about is the venue search area. And the intent of this area is to provide a place for the user to search for venues for the event. The functions of this area of the site include setting the location and radius and the date. It's very important that we can search for venues that are available for the event date. And also being able to maybe put a couple multiple dates around that, because the host or the user may really like a venue and maybe they have a date, maybe a week later or maybe the next day if they want to have a Friday versus Saturday event. And then the search results will be ranked to be displayed by whatever criteria is important to the user. So it could be the venue rating if a lot of users like the site, the venue type, the price, or the nearest location. So these are all options to rank the search results by. The search criteria can be set up to support the user needs for some venue features. So examples of these would be like restaurants, or examples of the type would be restaurants, fancy halls, community rooms, catering options, do they have free parking, what type of capacity. So the intent of the criteria area 2 is to provide a place for users to think about all the features that they want their venue to contain. They'll also be able to, for convenience, add any links, venue links they like. They can add it to their favorites folder. They'll be able to view the details of all the venues. So they click on a venue and they'll see the pictures, overall description, room configurations, do they have internet, audio, video, what type of parking. And then if they do like that venue, there'll also be a link to the venue site, so they can go directly to the site if they want even more information. And then the last function would be saving the criteria filter and the search ranking function. So the relationship between the venue area of the site and the other areas would be the final decision on the venue will get captured in the clipboard. And again, that's the final summary area of the site. The email address data fields. The venue selection needs to be connected to the wedding story, so that'll appear on the wedding story page. And then the date, again, is very important because the venue needs to be available on the date the user wants. Some of the objects they'll be using for this area of the site would be the profiles of the venues, the search filter, the rank ordering, the results page. That's what I mean by the rank ordering. And then the favorite button. So adding the button to add their venue links that they like to the favorite folder. The status, so the state of the site, the main thing is it's pretty much going to be in the same state, but it needs to remember the save and search criteria and the filters. Some concerns that the user may have with the site would be not a lot of venues to choose from. So we need to make sure that we have a big pool of venues before implementing this website. The user may also be concerned about forgetting some of their criteria or features that they want a venue to have. I'm not sure what they actually need for their wedding. So that's why we incorporated the criteria feature, where they can kind of step through the criteria on the side of the screen and determine, okay, do I want my venue to have parking? Or, free parking, is that important? What about free cake cutting? What about decorations, DJ? Just all these considerations. It'll force them to kind of step through that. Well, not force, but it's an option to step through that. And then the biggest concern too, another big concern of the user would be if they could save the results for later, which is why we are going to implement the saving the search filter and the rank ordering. The next area of the site is the favorite page. So the intent of this page is for a user to kind of house their top decisions. So, if they like 3 venues, they're going to add those top 3 to the favorite page. And they may also want to add their top decisions from the inspirational board. So wedding colors, there may be some options on the colors, cake decisions, decorations, so just things like that. Just kind of houses like the top 3 of all the different areas. Top 3 decisions for each area. The functions for this area of the site would be categorizing all of the items into groups, so it's easy to view. So there'll be a folder for the venue, the colors, the cake, the decorations, and so on. The user will be able to view, edit, and delete items from the folder and save its status. And they'll also be able to add comments or user feedback. So say somebody says, hey, that's a great venue. They hear from a phone call or an email that a venue is really great. Well, they want to capture that somewhere. So in the favorites page, so be able to enter a little comment there that says, hey, Pam says this is an awesome venue. So just capturing other people's inputs. The relationship between the favorites page and other areas, again, would be the clipboard. So the final area of the site, the summary, we want to move the favorites to the final. So when you pick your number 1 out of that top 3 of the venues, you want to be able to add that to your clipboard. And so then also the data feed. So the data feed from the venue search, and then the inspiration board need to be captured into this area. So when you're in the inspiration board, you should be able to send those items to the favorite folder, and same with the venue search. The state of this site would be remembering all the items saved to the favorites, and then just allowing the user to edit and save it as needed. Objects would be the buckets or containers of the categories for the different groups. So, the folder for the venue, the colors, the cake, etc. And then also the comments or sticky notes for making remarks about certain venues or, wedding colors or whatnot. So input they get from others. Some of their concerns with this area of the site would be whether their stuff is actually getting saved here. So when they're looking at a venue and they add to favorites, is it actually getting saved into favorites? And how they add something there. So all of our areas of the site that relate to favorites should have it clearly available, a clear button that stands out to the user, so they understand that their information is going to favorites. And also, overall, this area should really help the user stay organized. Well, lastly, I'm going to talk about the final page here. So all those areas are connected to this summary page we call the clipboard. So the purpose of this is basically the final checklist for the event. So the final decisions, whether it's from the favorites page or if you're just moving it from the event date page, all that information, all the final information will be captured here. And then the user will have the option if they want to export it or print it. They can do that, so they can share it with family and friends or some of the vendors. So the functions of this area of the site would be to store all the final decisions for the event, and then group those decisions into categories. Or also you could view kind of like an itinerary, so one big long summary in a checklist form of all the event details, and that's pretty much what you'd be printing out. You'll be able to edit, delete, add, save items from this list. Also, there'll be a feature to see when it was the last date that it was modified. So say your fiance has a task he needed to get done and claims he did it, well, you can go in and check and see, oh, he hasn't touched this in a month, you know, I better remind him of his task, his wedding planning task. Also previous versions, so history of decisions made in the past can be displayed on this. And then a timeline for the events. So in this checklist form, in the itinerary, the summary, there'll be kind of a timeline of what event needs to happen, or what decisions need to be made by what time. So this needs to be made, you know, you should have this picked, the venue picked a year before the wedding, you know, invites 3 months before, cake, you know, 3 months before, some items are 6 months before, some are a week before. You know, they'll all be grouped into that area in a checklist form so the user can verify that they're on track for their planning. The relationship between this area of the site and the others would be the date and the venue and the inspirational board, because all that information, the final decision from all those areas need to be captured here in that summary checklist form. And then also the user should be able to add any items from the favorite page if they're using that heavily, you know, just being able to press a button and have that be transferred to their clipboard. The objects the user will use for this area would be the checklist, you know, in which will be ordered in a timeline with a timeline ordering, and then there'll be photos or you know, any content related to each category. There'll be buttons to add, delete, save, or print, export. The state of this, there'll be the last modified date that needs to be captured, and then exporting the itinerary or checklist of the final details. Some of the concerns the user may have, where do they start planning? So the site aids with this by having the venue selection and the inspiration board, and then the timeline on the clipboard, so they can determine, you know, what do I need to do, where do I start, am I on track, and then can I change my mind. And obviously the edit, delete, and save enables the user to change their mind. Alright, and that concludes our presentation on our event planning site. Thank you.